time on the hit list, we celebrate the success of 9 superstars out to prove that blondes really do have more fun. As of April 2005, thanks to his top-selling debut album She's No You, teen idol Jesse McCartney can lay claim to being a platinum blonde.
I love it. I've always dreamed of having a platinum record, and I just recently was able to put it over my bed behind in my bedroom. So it's been an unbelievable ride so far.
Then just 18 years old, the pin-up popstar from New York was being compared to an eclectic bunch of older artists, from Michael Jackson and Usher to Hall & Oates and Craig David. No doubt seeing She's No You lingering in the Billboard charts for more than 40 weeks must have been a huge relief for the former member of a boy band named Dream Street, who'd taken the brave step of going solo at 15.
I was scared, nervous, excited, although, I put 3 years literally into this record and just so much time. It took forever. And I don't know what would have happened if it didn't do well. I would have crawled in a hole somewhere.
If his solo effort had bombed, however, Jesse would have had another career to fall back on. Having made his Broadway debut at the age of 10, he built up a useful CV of acting credits in shows like All My Children and Summerland. Now, with a hit solo album in the bag, he was looking for new challenges.
I got so much to do, and you don't have enough time to hear about it all, but I got so much left to do, it's ridiculous, and I'm still, checking them off on my list. I got a lot of things left to do, and hopefully you'll be seeing them. You'll be watching them with me.
One thing he was able to check off his list 2 years later was writing a hit song for another artist. Along with One Republic frontman Ryan Tedder, Jesse co-wrote the mega hit Bleeding Love, which made Leona Lewis an instant star across the globe. When the British songstress flew out to the US, Jesse dropped in on her unannounced while she was having a drink with friends.
She's an absolute sweetheart. She's incredibly sweet, and we had a drink. We started talking, and man, what a way to debut. She really just killed that song and brought it to life.
No doubt she also helped earn Jesse a fortune in publishing royalties. Upon tuning in to the reality TV show Newlyweds Nick and Jessica, some quick-to-judge viewers might have been tempted to assign Jessica Simpson to the dumb blonde basket, if only for her gastronomical confusion. Not only did she confuse tuna with chicken, when asked if she fancied some buffalo wings, she famously replied, "Sorry, I don't eat buffalo." Her first single, I Wanna Love You Forever, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and album success followed. Ironically, however, she didn't become a household name until after the launch of the reality TV show, in which she starred with husband and fellow singer Nick Lachey. Labeling herself ditzy rather than dumb, the daughter of a Texan minister was certainly smart enough to convert her newlywed success into a new career opportunity and set her sights on snagging the part of Daisy Duke in 2005's big screen revival of the 80s TV show Dukes of Hazzard.
It was hard. I had to do the whole auditioning process, but I was really confident. I was confident that I was gonna get this role. So I think that more than anything, that's what people saw, and that's why I was casted, because they knew how much I really wanted it.
She certainly had what it took to impress the film's director, Jay Chandrasekhar.
It was really hard to replace Catherine Bach, and Jessica showed up in her shorts for the screen test, and I'm telling you, she just glowed, and it was like, there was just no doubt about it. She had this big mane of blonde hair and these tiny little shorts, and I thought, well, and she acted well too.
Nick also gave her scantily clad performance in the film the thumbs up.
I was there watching her train and watching her invest herself into this role and into this movie, so very, very proud of what she's done and how excited everyone is, about her in it, and just proud.
Unfortunately, the feeling was less than mutual 3 months later, when Nick allegedly refused to accompany Jessica on a charity trip to Africa for their 3rd anniversary. And by the end of 2005, they were working out the divorce. Since then, there have been lots of rumors regarding Jessica's love life. In 2008, she climbed back into the bikini for her lead role in Private Valentine, Blonde and Dangerous. She also released a country album and went on a tour of duty to entertain US troops in Kuwait. There wasn't a dry eye in the house back in 1996 when Gary Barlow confirmed Take That fans' deepest fears.
Let me just say thanks for everybody's support in the last 5 years. You've been absolutely fantastic to us. But unfortunately, the rumours are true. How Deep Is Your Love is going to be our last single together, and The Greatest Hits is going to be our last album. And from today, there's no more.
Less than a year after Robbie Williams left the group amid reports he'd been asked to leave due to his hard partying ways, Take That played an emotional last concert to weeping fans in Amsterdam. Nearly a decade later, the man credited with being the musical inspiration behind the most successful boy band since the Beatles was making another announcement.
Well, we'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone for giving us the last 10 years off. But unfortunately, the rumours are true. Take That are going back on tour.
The rhetoric may have been the same, but some things had changed.
I think there's a new term being made this morning. We're now officially a man band.
An official man band.
Great, that's great.
I like that. I like that. It's got a ring to it.
I did have that ready in my back pocket, just in case anyone asked that.
The press conference ended the voluntary exile Gary had entered into upon being dropped from his record company in 1999. The promising start to his solo career that had begun with his 1996 album Open Road took a downturn with his second offering 12 months, 11 days. He lost out in the popularity stakes to his former Take That bandmate Robbie Williams, who took delight in taunting Gary as his own solo career soared. Robbie has since apologised, claiming he would swap all of his success for the happy home life of Gary, who's now a husband and father of 3. Whether or not being on one of the London trains targeted by bombers in the 2005 attacks influenced Gary's decision to reunite with Jason Orange, Howard Donald and Mark Owens, there was no looking back. Their single Patience won Single of the Year at the 2007 Brit Awards, while Robbie Williams was reportedly undergoing a stint in rehab in the US. The story goes that the opening track on Gwen Stefani's debut solo album Love, Angel, Music Baby was co-written by Linda Perry as a challenge to the former No Doubt singer to get over her writer's block. What You Waiting For went on to earn Gwen a Grammy nomination for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance in 2005. She followed that single up with a duet with rapper Eve produced by Dr. Dre called Rich Girl, a reworking of a song from the musical Fiddler on the Roof. Then came the hugely successful Hollaback Girl, which came as a response to Courtney Love's jibe in an interview with Teen magazine, in which she referred to Gwen as a cheerleader. Hollaback Girl went on to become Gwen's first US #1 single. Although she started working on her second solo album and her Harajuku Lovers Live tour soon after, much of Gwen's attention was being taken up by husband Gavin Rossdale, baby Kingston James, and her other great love, fashion. Already known for making most of her own stage clothes during her No Doubt days, she decided to get more serious about designing with the 2004 release of her label Lamb.
I mean, I've made clothes my whole life. I've been at TJMY, at Joann Fabrics, and, outlet stores finding, crap fabric and trying to make costumes and all that stuff. But on this level, it's a whole other game.
With help from her head designer Zaldi, she drew inspiration for her first collection from a wide range of influences.
It's always going to be a little bit of the Orange County, Anaheim Chola girl, a little bit of the Rasta girl, and then a little bit of that whole, Sound of Music kind of English girl. And I think that we had this big theme that was like Great Gatsby, kind of 1920s drop waist. And I just think that it's so sexy when you have all this covered up and then you turn around and there's just nothing there.
Not content with launching lines of clothing, underwear, accessories and merchandise like cameras, mobile phone charms and dolls, she also had to have her own fragrance.
It's really important for me to be able to do creatively whatever I want and not have anybody tell me what to do or have any boundaries or laws or rules or, you know. So I just went with them because they said, here, do what you want to do. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Having sold more than 20 million records worldwide, it seems strange that the little lady with the big voice hasn't struck it big in her home country. Despite being a household name in Europe, Latin America, Asia and Australia, Anastasia has only had limited success in the US.
I don't need to have America, and America still is a territory for me. I still sell records, I still get on TV shows, I still do. I'm known as, you know, Anastasia, the great singer from Europe.
The 5'3" belter from Chicago got her first break as a runner-up on the MTV show The Cut in 1999. Her debut album, Not That Kind, made it into the top 10 in 8 countries, and its lead single, I'm Outta Love, was a smash in Australia and Europe. By 2002, her meteoric rise to fame was capped with an invitation to join Celine Dion, Shakira, Cher and Mary J. Blige for VH1's Divas Live, and her selection to sing the theme to the 2002 World Cup, Boom. The year after, however, just as she was working on her third album, she received some devastating news.
I was definitely not prepared for this either, and more depressed that it came along because I was like, oh man, I so don't need this right now.
Having suffered a multitude of health problems since childhood, she was now faced with being diagnosed with breast cancer.
Instead of, I'm dying, you know, or why me or anything, I was like, oh, this is not fitting in with my itinerary, you know, was more of how my head, I was like, God, how do I fit breast cancer in with writing an album? God, what can I do? You know, I looked at it so differently than most people. I just kept on knowing that I wasn't going anywhere, but knowing that I had to go at it slowly.
That policy worked, and she was given the all clear in time for the release of her third album, Anastasia, which introduced the world to what she described as Sprock, her own blend of soul, pop and rock. Her new lease on life also brought her career full circle, as she prepared to host a British version of the TV show that brought her to fame 7 years earlier. For Anastasia, The Cut was a much-needed antidote to the rash of manufactured popsters churned out on reality TV.
Not put together by a bunch of panels of people trying to find a band, trying to find the music that they need to put in that band. It is about real bands that have been put together before we found them, that write their own material.
He made a name for himself by wearing leopard print drainpipes and belting out raunchy pop tunes. But it seems Scottish rocker Rod Stewart is finally mellowing out. Beginning in the year 2001, his American Songbook 4 album series, focusing on pop standards from the 1930s and 40s, delivered the kind of chart-topping success he hadn't seen in 30 years. No one was more shocked than Rod.
I'm always surprised, always surprised. Yeah, it was, because that was, you know, that was one hell of a risk that we took there. You know, just a dyed-in-the-wool rock singer, you know, deciding to do classics, crooning songs, but it paid off. Lucky boy.
Legendary producer Clive Davis then persuaded him to return to his rock roots. It proved to be a winning combination. Still the same great rock classics of our time went straight to the top of the Billboard charts in its first week of release, and Rod couldn't resist the urge to gloat.
I look at all the albums of people around my age, like Elton and, you know, the Stones and Paul McCartney and a lot of others. They haven't even cracked the top 10, you know, so I'm over the moon about it.
Born Roderick David Stewart in London in 1945, he came to prominence in the late 60s, singing with the Jeff Beck Group and the Faces before striking out on his own in 1969. He's had 62 hit singles, the biggest selling of which was 1978's Do You Think I'm Sexy? He sold over 250 million albums worldwide. In 2003, he was hitting the red carpet at the premiere of a musical based on his songs. Tonight's the Night, written by Ben Elton, showcased songs like Hot Legs, which was also a hit for Rod in 1978. Along with his well-earned reputation as a hellraiser, Rod the Mod is also known for his penchant for leggy blondes. Over the course of his 45-year career, he's been romantically linked to a string of models and actresses, including Britt Ekland, Kelly Emberg and Alana Hamilton. In 1990, he married model Rachel Hunter, who was 24 years his junior. They had 2 children together before separating in 1999 and finally divorcing in 2006. By then, he'd found an updated model in Rachel Hunter lookalike Penny Lancaster, who at 6'1" towers over him. When singer-songwriter, actor and poet Jewel signed her first deal with Atlantic Records at the age of 19, she admits she was pretty wet behind the ears.
I was raised on a ranch in Alaska. My dad's a cowboy, and I grew up on a working ranch. I actually grew up in a saddle barn with a coal stove, and we only lived off of what we were able to raise. We lived in a very secluded part of the state, so we had an outhouse and no running water in the whole 9 yards.
Having grown up on music by artists from every genre, Atlantic were finding her eclectic songwriting and singing style hard to pigeonhole.
But the way the business works is there are very specific genres, and I started to learn that because nobody knew where to put me. I had a label that was scratching their head looking at me going, "We don't know what you are. We don't know what little box to put you in." And amazingly, I've made it as a songwriter.
Despite her record company's concerns, her debut album, Pieces of You, much of which was recorded at the coffee house in San Diego where she regularly played, went on to become one of the biggest-selling debut albums of all time. It produced the top 10 singles Foolish Games, You Were Meant for Me, and Who Will Save Your Soul. But it was her 4th album, released in 2001, that brought her the most critical acclaim. This Way, with its raw live edge, sold over 1.5 million copies. 2 less well-received albums later, and she decided she needed a change of direction.
It was frustrating, and I really, as I saw the pop field narrow, and as I've been watching what's been happening in country radio, it took me a long time to fulfill my contract with Atlantic, and I did, and I didn't renegotiate because I knew I was going to make a full-fledged country effort.
That effort was Perfectly Clear, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard Country Album Charts in August 2008, a week after she married her boyfriend of 10 years, Ty Murray. For Jewel, who'd recorded nearly all of her previous albums in Nashville, finally giving herself over to her country roots must have been something of a relief.
My fans are very well versed in my country music, and it's my style. It's just my little style of songwriting that happens to fit, I hope, on country radio.
Starting out life as plain old Gordon Sumner from northeast England, Sting took on jobs as a bus conductor, construction labourer and tax officer before finding his way into teaching for 2 years. He played in bands at night and on the weekends, and the story goes that he picked up his nickname after walking on stage in a black and yellow sweater. One of his bandmates remarked on his resemblance to a bumblebee. Since then, even his family have called him Sting. After pumping out 5 chart-topping albums and winning 6 Grammy Awards as the songwriter and frontman of The Police, he started to make his name as a solo performer. He went on to record several multi-platinum albums along with 1999's blockbuster Grammy Award-winning hit Brand New Day, which he recently performed at Barack Obama's presidential inauguration. His 2003 album Sacred Love showed the political and social side to the passionate campaigner who was involved in many causes. Approaching the album brought some serious soul-searching.
In my case, it was asking a question, really. I mean, how relevant are you as a singer-songwriter in this world? You know, this kind of milieu of violence and the threat of war and actual war itself. And I didn't come up with any easy or quick answers.
In 1989, he and his partner Trudy Styler set up the Rainforest Foundation. As well as joining forces to save the planet, Sting and Trudy have had 4 children together. In 2006, they took on joint producer credits on a feature film called A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, starring Robert Downey Jr.
I think it's a very good film. I like to see my name with that executive producer title. Never had that before. It's a new experience for me. It's exciting. The film is done critically well. It did very well in Sundance. It won 2 prizes. The feedback here in Venice has been very, very positive. So I'm very proud to be involved.
It was an exciting debut for Sting, but clearly music will always be his first love.
Music is its own reward. You know, music will nourish you whether you're playing to the cat or 20,000 people. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you're playing music. Whether you make it or not shouldn't really matter.
After going out on a limb with her debut solo album Ruby Blue, Moloko's former frontwoman pulled out the big guns for her second effort.
I could never have made this record with a smaller label. It was expensive. I mean, I went all over the world. I worked with really top-notch people and all that. But I probably wasn't ready either to take that kind of responsibility. Because when you work just with one other person, which is how I did in Moloko and how I did on the first album, you sort of, you're going into it with a more experimental view and you sort of let it happen. You let the record develop. With this, I really had to be very kind of grown up and responsible.
Abandoning the experimental direction of Ruby Blue, Roisin Murphy went for a more mainstream sound on her 2006 release Overpowered.
It was a conscious decision to make a disco record, and I kind of followed that through to the nth degree, as far as I could take it. And I worked in a pop way. I worked with lots and lots of producers, lots and lots of writers, different mixers, took the tracks through different stages, which is how people work in pop. I wrote far too many songs and finished far too many songs and ended up with a very strong record.
After spending megabucks on making it, her new label EMI were going to want to see a commercially viable album. Although it didn't go on to be a smash, EMI were pleased enough with the results to let her go into the studio to start recording a 3rd album. Alongside her music career, Roisin, who was born in Ireland before moving to England, has been becoming something of a fashion icon since the release of Overpowered. The video to the single, which featured her wearing a black and silver puff jacket with matching miniskirt and geometric hat, epitomised her uniquely eclectic sense of style.
My style is a little bit, you know, it depends on my mood, but usually when I dress in the daytime, I'm quite boyish and quite mod. I like in the evening to be very glamorous, or on stage very sort of big outfits, kind of make statements.
Over the past few years, Roisin's visit to red carpet events have been drawing so much attention that top designers like Matthew Williamson have been queuing up to make her their muse. For Roisin, it's simply about wearing clothes that reflect the real her.
I love to play with clothes and just sort of, I'm trying to amplify something that's true with clothes rather than sort of mask anything or create any kind of lie.